I wouldn't bother holding that slot. She won't be needing it anymore. She's not coming back to this town. That's what my daughter-in-law said to my hairdresser of 15 years, as she leaned against the reception desk like she owned the place. I hadn't even finished recovering from my husband's funeral. I still had a black scarf tucked into my collar. Yet there she was, making calls and cancellations in my name like I'd already been erased. If you've ever seen someone cut from their own family, stay with me. And if this story reminds you of anything, anyone from your own town, comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I read them all. And if you believe some people deserve a voice, hit subscribe, because silence isn't always peace. That morning, I was supposed to be at my standing 9:00 a.m. appointment with Margot, the only hairdresser in Glenhurst, who still knew how to work with thinning, greying curls without making you feel like an inconvenience. Every second Thursday, without fail, for the past decade and a half, I'd walk through those glass doors, say hello to the same potted ficus, and sit in Margot's chair while she asked about my grandchildren and the latest book club fiasco. It was routine, gentle, mine. But that week, Margot never called to confirm. No text, no reminder. I thought maybe it had slipped through the cracks, what with everything going on. Grief can scramble the calendar. So I showed up anyway. Margot didn't meet me with her usual smile. She blinked like she'd seen a ghost. Her voice was clipped. "Oh, Mrs. Dalton." I thought. I was told. Told what I asked, removing my coat. She hesitated, then blurted, "That you'd moved out of town, that you wouldn't be coming back." My mouth went dry. "Who told you that?" I think she said she was your daughter-in-law." The room tilted slightly. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "You mean Marin?" She nodded. "She came in last week, said you wouldn't be needing the slot anymore." I forced a smile, but my fingers clutched the armrest like it was the only thing tethering me to the ground. Well, as you can see, I'm still here. I sat in silence while Margot washed my hair, her hands hesitant, like she wasn't sure whether she was doing something wrong by helping me. When I got home, the newspaper was missing from the porch. Again. My son's car wasn't in the driveway. Again. And the kitchen was clean, not lived in clean, but scrubbed and staged. No mug in the sink, no scent of breakfast. Like no one lived here anymore. Like I didn't. The last photo of my late husband that used to hang by the stairs had been replaced with a decorative wooden quote, "The future belongs to those who believe in their own beauty." Marin's style, and certainly not mine. I went upstairs and opened my bedroom door. The curtains were drawn. My chair, the one I used for reading, crocheting, sipping tea in the afternoon light, was gone, replaced by a yoga mat. A pale blue speaker sat on my nightstand. I never owned a speaker. I didn't recognize the room. That evening at dinner, I tried to bring it up. "Hey," I began, keeping my voice light. "I think there's been a mix-up." Margot thought I moved away, said someone cancelled my hair appointments. Marin didn't even look up from her phone. "Oh, I just told her not to keep the slot open in case something happened. You've been so unpredictable lately." "Unpredictable," I repeated, stunned. "You forget things. You wandered off during the funeral luncheon. It's nothing personal, just trying to keep things from getting awkward for everyone." My son Jacob stirred his stew. He didn't look at me, didn't say a word. That silence broke something inside me. I married into this town. I raised my boy here. Every PTA meeting, every bake sale, every blood drive, my name was somewhere on the sign-up sheet. I knew the mayor's dog's birthday, for heaven's sake. And now my daughter-in-law was telling people I'd vanished. The next morning, I checked my mail. There was a change of address form from USPS. I hadn't filled one out, but it had my name on it. The forwarding address, a P.O. box across the county. The credit card company had flagged suspicious activity, a cancelled subscription to my magazine club, and a notification that the secondary cardholder, Jacob, had requested to be the primary. Marin was systematically replacing me, not yelling, not fighting, just rearranging my life around me like a museum exhibit being decommissioned. I tried confronting her. I'd appreciate it if you didn't speak for me again, I told her firmly in the hallway. She smiled, sharp, sugar-coated. Of course, Evelyn. But let's be honest. You need rest, not responsibilities. I looked at her tall, manicured, polished like a politician's wife. I'm grieving, not dying. But that didn't seem to register. In her mind, I was already a ghost in this house. Days passed. Margot sent a text, timid, apologetic. Hope everything's okay. Let me know if you need anything. She was trying to check in. I didn't know how to reply. I ran into Ruth from the neighborhood book club outside the pharmacy. We missed you at the last meeting, she said. Maren said you'd joined a retreat upstate. How's the nature life? I stared at her. A retreat. She looked confused. Isn't that what she said? You're doing some wellness cleanse or something? I excused myself and got into my car before the tears could fall. That night, I sat in my old armchair, the one I'd dragged back upstairs from the garage, and flipped through photo albums. My late husband, Thomas, with his arm around me in every family photo. Jacob blowing out birthday candles in a hat I sewed by hand. Maren standing beside me during their wedding, holding my arms, smiling for the camera. What changed? Or had I always been temporary in her eyes? I overheard her on the phone the next morning, talking to someone from the country club. No, she won't be coming this year. Go ahead and transfer her membership. I'll handle the paperwork. Her membership? I knocked on her office door. Maren, what membership are you transferring? She looked up, unbothered. Oh, the ladies' circle at the club. I figured you weren't interested anymore. I was going to take your place on the board. My place, I repeated. You've had a long run, Evelyn. Maybe it's time for someone else to step in. It wasn't a conversation. It was a closure notice. That evening, I looked into the mirror and didn't recognize myself. Not just because of the graying curls or the lines on my face, but because I was disappearing from the inside out. My hairdresser, my club, my chair, my schedule, my photographs, even my name on certain accounts. Gone. Replaced. I wasn't just being ignored, I was being erased. And the worst part, everyone else was letting it happen. My son, who used to call me every Friday without fail, now barely looked up from his phone. My neighbors, who once asked for garden tips and zucchini bread recipes, now smiled awkwardly and crossed the street. My friends, who I used to host for tea, stopped inviting me to things because Maren said you were traveling. No one asked me. If someone had slapped me or shouted, I might have fought back. But this quiet dismantling, it was harder to see, and even harder to explain. Have you ever been slowly cut out of your own life, not by fire or fury, but by whispers and paperwork? Please share your story in the comments. Maybe if we talk about it, others will recognize it happening to them too. Maybe we can remind the world that silence is not consent. And if you're still here with me, thank you. Truly. You being here means I'm still visible. Subscribe if you believe we deserve to be seen. Because what I didn't know yet was that Maren had only just begun. I began to notice small things first. The front door lock, one I'd used for nearly 3 decades, suddenly resisted my key. The brass felt unfamiliar, like it had been replaced. I twisted it again, thinking maybe my grip was off. But no, it wouldn't turn. I knocked, embarrassed. Maren opened it perfectly composed in silk loungewear. Oh, she said, tilting her head, we had the locks changed. Safety reasons. You know how the neighborhood's been lately? No, I don't, I replied, forcing a smile. But thank you for letting me know. Oh, right. It must have slipped my mind. That was the first time I stood outside my own house, feeling like a stranger. That weekend, I went to grab my afternoon vitamins from the cabinet calcium iron omega-3s. But the bottles were gone. In their place were sleek, unlabeled pill organizers in soft pastel tones, the kind you see in boutique wellness blogs. What happened to my vitamins, I asked at dinner. Maren didn't look up. I replaced them. The ones you were taking are outdated. I had a nutritionist friend recommend a better brand. You didn't ask me. I didn't think you'd mind. I minded. I minded deeply. Later that night, I checked the labels. Nothing. Just little slots with days of the week printed on them. I didn't take them. The next morning, Maren asked with a grin, "Did you take Tuesdays yet?" I lied. Yes. Her smile widened slightly too much. Then came the forgotten appointments. My dentist called to say I'd missed my cleaning. I never missed dental appointments. I checked the calendar I'd kept since 2004. It was marked, clearly, in pen. But on the digital family calendar that Maren had started managing through a shared app, there was no mention of it. Instead, a notification popped up: Nora's ballet recital RSVP confirmed. Nora is my granddaughter. I wasn't invited. I brought it up over coffee with Jacob, desperate to tether myself to something real. "I think there's some kind of mistake," I said gently. "I've missed 2 appointments this month, and Maren keeps saying things have been taken care of without asking me." He didn't even look up from his phone. "She's just helping Mom. She's taking over. She's trying to keep things streamlined. You've been under stress lately." The word hung between us like an accusation. Stress. Unstable, forgetful, slipping. They weren't saying those things out loud, but the implication hung heavy in every exchange. Even Nora, my granddaughter, who used to run into my arms after school, had grown distant. I'd offered to pick her up once, and Maren immediately stepped in. "Oh no, Evelyn. We don't want you to get overwhelmed. The traffic, the noise, it's too much." I wasn't deaf or disoriented. I'd been picking up children longer than Maren had been alive, but somehow I had become obsolete. One morning, I opened my closet and found my dresses gone. Every long-sleeved blouse, every floral print I loved vanished. In their place hung monochrome beige muted pieces I'd never buy. A folded note sat on the shelf. "Simplified wardrobe, easier decisions." I stared at it like it was a punch to the stomach. I walked into the kitchen holding the note. "What is this?" I asked. Maren smiled sweetly. I decluttered. "I read this book about cognitive load and how older adults benefit from fewer options. You went through my personal closet. It's all still there, in storage. If you really want something, I can bring it back." I looked at her. "You've taken my keys, my doctor, my clothes. What's next?" My voice. She laughed. "Don't be dramatic." That night I cried. I didn't even recognize the tears at first. They came without warning, hot, steady, silent. I sat on the edge of the bed that no longer felt like mine, and wept into hands that had cooked holiday meals, signed school permission slips, and buried a husband. I wasn't being cared for. I was being managed. Have you ever felt that slow erosion? Not a fight, not a betrayal, but a thinning. Like someone is sifting away your identity one decision at a time. If you've ever seen control wear a smile and call itself love, please leave a comment. I need to know I'm not the only one. Things escalated after that. I came home from a walk one afternoon to find a woman in my kitchen. Young, blonde, wearing a badge. "Oh, hi there," she said brightly. "I'm Dana, just here for the home wellness consult." For whom I asked. "You, of course, Maren scheduled it." I blinked. "Scheduled what?" "We're going to assess your mobility lighting safety cognitive patterns." My voice cut through her rehearsed pitch. "Get out of my house." She hesitated. "Maren said you'd be resistant. It's normal. I've seen this before." "Out. Now." She left, but not before whispering into her phone, "Yep." Confirmed she's showing signs of confusion and paranoia. I stood at the sink, clutching the counter, shaking. "So." When I confronted Maren that evening, she looked unbothered. "I was just trying to be proactive," she said. "Dana called me paranoid." "Well, you did ask her to leave mid-assessment." "I didn't consent to be assessed." "You don't have to," she replied coolly. "It's part of our family insurance policy. I can initiate care protocols if I see significant changes." Care protocols. She was talking about me like I was a spreadsheet, a client, a liability. The scariest part, no one saw it, because she never yelled. never raised a hand, never used a harsh word. She smiled, and every smile was a step closer to erasing me from the map of my own life. I stopped using the kitchen. I stopped using the family calendar. I stopped suggesting outings with Nora, or shopping with Ruth, or anything at all that might trigger a quiet no wrapped in condescension. I became careful, shrinking inside my own skin. But then one night, I found an envelope slipped under my bedroom door. It was plain unmarked. Inside was a Polaroid of me, sitting on the porch, dozing off in the sunlight. The back read in red ink, "See what others see." I rushed down the hall. "Marin, what is this? Who gave you this photo?" She didn't even look up. "Maybe you left the door unlocked. Anyone could have taken it." I knew that tone. It wasn't concern. It was warning. That was when I stopped sleeping through the night. Every creak felt like a trap being set. Every closed door felt like a verdict I hadn't heard yet. I kept my old planner under my pillow, scribbled down notes about who said what, when I took which pills, when I last left the house. I became a documentarian of my own decline because I no longer trusted anyone else to keep track of my reality. Tell me in the comments, have you ever felt the floor moving beneath you, even as everyone else insisted you were imagining it? Have you ever been told you're forgetful just as people start replacing your routines? Have you ever been called fragile right before someone takes control of your life? Speak up. Your story might give someone else the courage to believe what's happening to them is real. Because what I didn't realize yet was that I was one step away from being erased entirely. I stopped speaking much. Not because I didn't have thoughts or feelings or concerns, but because no one seemed to listen. Or worse, when I did speak, they nodded with that glazed-over kindness people reserve for the elderly they've already decided are fading. I wasn't fading. I was being erased, piece by piece, quietly, methodically. Jacob had once called me every Friday like clockwork. It had started when he left for college. I never asked for it. He just did. Even when he got married, even when work piled up, he always found time to check in. Now I could walk past him in the same hallway, and all I'd get was a distracted "Hey Mum" without eye contact. Once I knocked on his office door and stepped in, not to bother, just to say I was making lemon bars, his favorite. He didn't look up from his screen. "Can you ask Marin next time if you need something scheduled?" Scheduled. I wasn't a meeting. I was his mother. I tried calling my bridge group, the one I'd been part of for over a decade. No answer from Carol. No text back from Joan. I finally got Patty on the phone. Her voice was sheepish. "Evelyn, I thought you moved. Marin said you were upstate in one of those artist retreats." Artist retreat. "I haven't gone anywhere," I said. Patty hesitated. "Well, I mean, it's been a while. We weren't sure if you wanted visitors. I've been here the whole time." "Oh," she said softly. "That's strange." Yes, it was. My granddaughter Nora stopped knocking on my door after school. She used to come in almost every day to show me her drawings, to steal a peppermint from the little glass dish I kept on the dresser. One day, I filled it with fresh mints and left the door open. She walked by, didn't look in, didn't pause. Later, I found the dish empty and in the trash, with a note taped to the lid, "Too much sugar." The neighbors had changed too. People I'd gardened with, swapped recipes with, laughed with over backyard fences, now crossed the street when they saw me. Smiled politely, but with that wary edge, like they'd heard something about me, but weren't sure if it was true. I stood outside by the mailbox once for 20 minutes, just to make myself visible. Just to wave. Only one person waved back, and it was the UPS driver. It wasn't just the people, it was the spaces. My chair in the living room gone. My Sunday spot in church, someone else sat there now, and the usher didn't even blink. Even my usual booth at Daisy's Diner had been reserved when I showed up. I sat in a corner with lukewarm coffee and watched a young couple laugh in my booth. Marin had told them I'd moved away. I knew it without asking. I began to second-guess everything. Was I becoming paranoid? Was I really forgetting things? I walked into the kitchen one day and couldn't remember why I came. I tried to unlock my tablet and forgot the password. I misread the date on the calendar and showed up to an event that had passed. Each time Maren appeared, not with concern, but with quiet triumph. Maybe we should talk to someone, she said gently once, watching me struggle with the TV remote. It could be early signs. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Early signs. The phrase echoed in my ears long after she left the room. I wrote it down in my notebook, in capital letters, in red ink. Nothing to be ashamed of. I began writing everything down. The date, the time, what I ate, who said what I remembered, what I couldn't. I had notebooks hidden in 3 different drawers. I was terrified someone would find them and say, "See, she's obsessed. She's unstable." But without them, I didn't trust my own mind anymore. One night I couldn't sleep. I went downstairs and sat by the window wrapped in a shawl, listening to the house breathe. I heard Maren on the phone. She didn't know I was nearby. "Yes," she whispered. "She's getting worse. It's like she's not all there some days. I've kept records. We may be able to start the process soon." I held my breath. The process. The next morning, my name was no longer on the Wi-Fi. I asked Jacob about it. He said it must have been a glitch. A glitch. I was losing access to my life and being told it was just tech trouble. Shh. Even the walls felt like they were closing in. I couldn't use the family printer password changed. I couldn't log into the family calendar access denied. I couldn't reach the mailbox without asking for a key, the mailbox I'd had for 32 years. I left a pie on the kitchen counter one day. By afternoon, it was gone. No thank you. No comment. Just gone. I wasn't a person in that house anymore. I was a shadow, a background prop in someone else's story. I tried to call Ruth, my oldest friend, and ask her to come over. She picked up, startled. "I thought you were in Connecticut." I closed my eyes. "No, I'm still here. Maren said you'd moved to live with your sister." "I don't have a sister." A long pause. Then a quiet, "Oh." I could hear it, the shifting tone, the disbelief in her voice. And I realized the more I tried to prove I was still here, the crazier I sounded. That's how gaslighting works. It doesn't erase you overnight. It makes you question whether you ever existed in the first place. Have you ever felt that? Have you ever started doubting your own memory, not because it failed you, but because everyone around you began rewriting your reality? Comment below, please. Say something, share something, anything. Because when the world goes quiet around you, you begin to believe the silence is your fault. And I need to know I'm not the only one who's lived through that. Shh. One night, I overheard Nora giggling with her mother in the living room. "She called me by the wrong name again," Nora whispered. "I know," Maren replied. "She's not well, sweetie. It's not her fault." I hadn't called her by the wrong name. She'd mumbled, and I'd asked her to repeat. But now, I was becoming a bedtime anecdote, a cautionary tale, the crazy grandma in the house who didn't know what year it was. And I was still making the beds, still folding their laundry, still baking muffins, still here and completely invisible. I thought I was vanishing. But then one night through the vent near my bedroom floor, I heard something. A phrase. A sentence so sharp it sliced through the fog like a knife. "She won't be around much longer anyway." It wasn't Maren's voice. It was Jacob's. "She won't be around much longer anyway." The words didn't leave my ears for days. I replayed them over and over in the silence of my room, trying to hear if I'd misunderstood. But I hadn't. It was Jacob's voice. My son. I had leaned closer to the vent that night, not expecting to hear anything, but what I heard shattered the last pieces of my certainty. He wasn't questioning Maren. He wasn't worried about me. He was part of it. Somehow, at some point, my child had crossed over to her side. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was how it began for people who lost everything, not with fire, not with theft, but with compliance. When dawn came, I was already dressed. I walked into the kitchen like nothing had changed. Maren greeted me with her usual cheer, sliding a mug across the counter. "Green tea with ginseng," she chirped. "Better for energy and clarity." I stared at the mug. "What happened to the coffee maker?" "Oh," she said casually. "I put it in storage. Too much caffeine isn't great at your age." At your age, I opened the fridge. My yogurt, the one with actual sugar, was gone. So were the butter sticks I used for baking. Everything was labeled. Everything was organic, low-sodium, plant-based. You switched my diet. She blinked innocently. I'm just trying to support your health, Evelyn. No, she was building a case. Every change, every restriction, it was all evidence in her quiet campaign to present me as someone unfit to make her own decisions. Later that week, I received a letter in the mail, one I wasn't meant to see. It was addressed to Jacob and Maren Dalton. It came from Glenhurst Mental Wellness Centre. The envelope was thick, clinical, and cold. Inside, I found a brochure titled Family-Led Mental Health Assessment Pathways. It detailed protocols for elder cognitive safety, emphasizing family-led observation logs, and fast-track recommendations for conditional evaluation. Attached was a preliminary form. My name was on it. Pre-filled. I didn't remember ever speaking to anyone from the centre. I had never consented to anything. The reporting party listed Maren. That afternoon, I went to the pharmacy to refill my blood pressure medication. Hi, Evelyn. The young pharmacist smiled. Just a sec. Let me pull you up. Oh, that's odd. Looks like your primary care provider's been changed. Changed. Yes, Dr. Hoover's been removed. It says your care is now under Glenhurst Mental Wellness, coordinated through a family liaison. Is that right? I stood frozen. I didn't approve that I said. He blinked. Huh. It says the paperwork was signed last week. I didn't sign anything. He looked uneasy. You may want to speak to the new provider, or your power of attorney. I nearly dropped the prescription bag. Power of attorney? Yeah. It's listed as Maren Dalton. She's marked as your health proxy. My hands trembled. I walked out into the parking lot, sat in my car, and cried. Not quiet tears this time, full-bodied sobs. Because I realized Maren hadn't just been controlling my calendar, my food, my clothes. She had legally repositioned herself as the gatekeeper to my life. But that's when everything changed. That's when I changed. The next day, I went to the small cafe near the library, the one place I knew Maren would never be seen in. It was too rustic, too small town for her curated tastes. I needed air. I needed space. That's where I saw her Gina, one of the nurses, who had taken care of my husband during his final weeks. She was off duty, sipping an iced coffee, scrolling through her phone. I walked over. Evelyn, she said, surprised. I haven't seen you in months. We caught up for a while, small things. Then I lowered my voice. Gina, can I ask you something personal? Sure. Do you know if someone can be assigned a mental health evaluation without knowing? She hesitated. Technically, yes, under certain guardianship protocols. Usually, though, there has to be consent, or at least demonstrable decline. What if the person hasn't declined? She looked at me carefully. Are you okay, Evelyn? I nodded. Someone's trying to make it look like I'm not. Her eyes narrowed. Has someone been reporting on you? My daughter-in-law. Possibly my son. Gina tapped her fingers on her coffee cup. Listen, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but last month I got a call from someone named Maren Dalton asking about end-of-life psychiatric care for a family member. Said they were showing signs of delusion and forgetfulness. She looked at me hard. Was that about you? My chest tightened. Yes. I didn't take the referral, she said. Something about it felt too smooth. My voice shook. Thank you. She nodded slowly. Evelyn, if you need help documenting anything I know people, quiet people, medical social workers who don't like being lied to, something in me steadied. It was the first time someone had believed me without hesitation, without patronizing, without deflection, and in that moment I stopped being afraid. I went home that night and retrieved my notebooks. I labeled them cross-referenced dates, gathered receipts, copied appointment cards. I started recording audio memos on a hidden device. Not because I wanted to be paranoid, but because I needed to build my defense. If they wanted to put me on trial for losing myself, I would prove I was still here. Have you ever had that moment, the shift, where you stop asking, why is this happening to me, and start asking, what can I do about it? Have you ever felt the slow burn of clarity push away the fog? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your moment. That second, your spine stiffened and you said, "Not anymore." Because for me, that moment came the second I realized someone else had signed a document with my name on it. And it wasn't going to happen again. I didn't sleep that night, but not out of fear this time. I was planning. Shh. Because from that moment on, I wasn't a ghost anymore. I was a witness. And I was going to start looking. I began waking up earlier than usual, before the house stirred, before the kettle clicked, before the walls could whisper the story of someone who had lost her edge. I'd sit at the kitchen table, notebook open, pen in hand, and review everything I remembered from the day before. I logged timestamps. I sketched floor plans of who moved where, who spoke what, and when the shift in tone came. Because once I saw the truth, I couldn't unsee it. Maren wasn't just trying to manage me. She was building a narrative. Quietly, carefully. With each helpful adjustment, she was assembling a version of Evelyn Dalton who couldn't be trusted, who needed to be set aside for her own good. But the real Evelyn, I was right here, watching and ready. The first solid evidence came from a voicemail. I had asked Gina, the nurse who'd told me about Maren's inquiry, to keep her ears open. 1 week later, she forwarded me a voicemail she'd received by mistake. It was Maren's voice. "Hi, Gina. Just following up. I've logged her recent behavior in the shared tracker. Yesterday, she forgot her own phone passcode that's 3 incidents in 5 days. I'm hoping we can fast-track her eligibility paperwork. My husband is on board. He's just not ready to talk about it publicly." I listened to that recording over and over. I had never forgotten my passcode. I had changed it. Because Maren had borrowed my phone too often. She turned self-protection into symptoms. I saved the file, backed it up in 2 separate USB drives. Then I began collecting more. So, I requested a bank statement through the mail to bypass the digital login Maren had helped me reset. When it arrived, I spread the pages across my bed like a jigsaw puzzle. That's when I saw them. 4 transfers, small at first, then larger. All made in the early morning hours when I was asleep. The amounts weren't shocking individually, but they were directed to an unfamiliar account, not a joint account with Jacob, not a household expense. The name on the receiving end, the Dalton Family Living Trust, a trust I had never seen before. I checked my files. The original trust my late husband and I had created 10 years ago was still there. And this was different. Modified. Updated. Filed under a new EIN. And worst of all, my name was gone from the list of trustees. I hadn't signed anything. I hadn't consented to anything. I drove to the county records office. I said I was there for genealogy research. The woman at the desk barely looked up. I asked for recent filings under Dalton Trust. She printed them without blinking. I sat in the corner of the building, away from the dusty shelves, and read every word. The new document named Jacob and Maren Dalton as primary trustees. No Evelyn. It had been notarized 2 months after my husband's funeral. I had been in the house. I had been alive, and no one had told me. I circled the name of the notary, took a picture, and walked out into the sun, my hands shaking, but my mind finally still. I had proof. Have you ever had that moment? The one where the betrayal you feared becomes the betrayal you can touch. It doesn't feel like victory. It feels like heartbreak in physical form. If you've ever uncovered something, a file, a call log, a photo that confirmed what your gut had been screaming, leave a comment, because that moment is real. That collapse of denial. That quiet scream inside your chest. Let's talk about it. Let's stop pretending it doesn't happen in families. Let's name it. I wasn't reckless. I didn't rush into confrontation. Instead, I brought the documents to Gina. She introduced me to a quiet, middle-aged woman named Diane, a social worker with 30 years in adult protective services. Diane wore no makeup, carried no briefcase, just a thin leather folder and the look of someone who had seen it all. She listened, took notes, asked questions like a surgeon mapping veins. "I'm not saying you're in immediate legal danger," she told me, "but I am saying someone has built a convincing case to remove your autonomy slowly but deliberately." She recommended that I retain a lawyer, quietly, independently. But that would come later. For now, she gave me something more precious than legal advice. She gave me language, words for what I was experiencing, constructive gaslighting, informal power of attorney abuse, covert coercion of vulnerable adult. I had felt those things. Now I could name them. A few days later, I placed a tiny voice recorder under the dining room buffet table. I didn't want to. It felt wrong. But I had to know. That night, Jacob and Maren had guests over another couple from his law firm. As they chatted and sipped wine, I quietly climbed the stairs. The next morning, I retrieved the recorder. I sat in my car in the driveway and listened. At minute 42, I heard it. Maren she won't go quietly, but that's why we keep the story clean. If anyone asks, we've been concerned for months. No one challenges concern. Jacob, let's just make sure we don't say anything too direct. I'll talk to Dad's old lawyer about finalizing the backup plan next week. Backup plan. My own son. I drove straight to Diane's office, played her the recording. She didn't flinch. You need to act fast, she said. I will, I replied. She nodded. Just be careful. If she senses what you're doing, she'll move faster. And that was exactly what happened. 3 days later, I went to retrieve the USB drive where I'd stored the bank documents. It was gone. The box I kept it in under the false bottom of my jewelry drawer had been shifted, the tape seal broken. I searched the entire room. Then the house. Nothing. When I asked Maren if anyone had been in my room, she gave a dry laugh. Don't look at me. But her eyes were too calm. She knew, and she'd gotten there first. That night I didn't sleep. Not out of fear, out of fury. Because now I understood what I was up against, not just lies, but strategy. Maren wasn't reacting. She was planning, and I had just made my first real move. If someone had told you your family could plot around your life like a business takeover, would you believe them? Would you know the signs? Leave a comment. Please. Someone out there might need your story. Because families don't always break you with rage. Sometimes they do it with procedure. And yet, despite everything I had found, I still wasn't prepared for how fast she'd strike back. I was never the kind of woman people looked twice at in high school. Not the homecoming queen. Not the debate captain. Not even the charity volunteer with perfect teeth and a recommendation letter from a local judge. I was the girl who wore hand-me-downs that didn't quite fit, who carried a prepaid phone, who left class early to check on her mother's pills and came back smelling like cigarettes, not because I smoked, but because I lived in a house that reeked of desperation. So when I met Jacob Dalton, polished, polite, untouched by the weight of generational failure, I knew exactly what I wanted. And I knew exactly what stood in the way. His mother. Evelyn wasn't cruel. That would have made things easier. I could have fought that. But she was something worse. She was adored by the community, by the neighbors, by Jacob's colleagues who whispered about her strength after Thomas's death, by the friends who brought casseroles to a woman who had never needed to ask. She was the kind of woman people deferred to, trusted, believed, and the moment Jacob introduced me to her, I could see it in Evelyn's eyes, the evaluation, the quiet calculation behind the smile. I didn't pass. They all thought I came from good stock because I had learned how to wear beige and nod at the right times. But Evelyn, she saw beneath it. She smelled the insecurity. She spotted the cracks I tried to wallpaper over. She never raised her voice, never said I wasn't good enough. She just never let me belong. She corrected my salad fork placement at our engagement dinner. She called me Maren with a tone that made the name sound borrowed. She reorganized our kitchen after we moved in for efficiency, she said. She never meant to humiliate me, but she never once made space for me either. So I carved out space where I could. I signed us up for galas. I booked spa packages with Jacob's credit card. I updated the family trust paperwork after Thomas passed legally cleanly within the grey lines of fiduciary optimization. I told Jacob we needed to modernize, digitize, simplify. He nodded. He always nodded, especially when Evelyn wasn't around, because even he knew that I was doing what needed to be done. And maybe I did push harder after Thomas died. Maybe I saw a window and took it, because I had waited long enough. smiled long enough, bit my tongue long enough. Do you know what it's like to live under the same roof as someone who makes you feel like a guest in your own house? Someone who places doilies on tables you bought? Someone who refolds the towels you hung? Someone who leaves recipe notes in the margins of cookbooks you brought home? I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life being politely erased, so I erased her first. It started small. Cancelled her dentist, switched her vitamins, moved her chair, told Nora gently that Grandma needed more rest, told the neighbours that Evelyn had joined a writing retreat, told the hairdresser she wouldn't be coming back. It was easy. Too easy, really. People believe confident women, and I had learnt how to sound very, very confident. Was it cruel? Maybe, but I didn't care. I was reclaiming space, and for the first time in years the house felt like mine. My kitchen, my calendar, my family. Evelyn was still in it, technically, but she was in the background now, muted, softened, contained. Oh, I didn't expect her to push back. She never had the fire. At least that's what I thought, until I noticed the questions she started asking. The phone calls she made when she thought I wasn't listening. The way she began locking her door. The way her eyes tracked me in silence, not with confusion, but calculation. Like she had awakened. Too late. Then one day I went into her room to leave her folded laundry. She'd left her notebook open on the desk. Page after page. Names, dates, times, conversations, quotes. Color-coded. I flipped to the back and found a list titled Things She Has Taken. It included her chair, her dentist, her peppermint dish, her Friday calls with Jacob. Number 31 read, My right to be asked? I closed the notebook, calmly, walked to the kitchen, and shredded my backup plan. If she wanted a fight, she'd get one. But not a loud one. Not the kind that makes people take sides. A quiet war. The kind you win by making the other person look unreasonable, unwell, untrustworthy. Shh. Have you ever felt that sharp, sudden line inside you, the one between self-preservation and domination? It's thinner than people think. So tell me, do you believe past pain justifies control? Or does it simply explain it? Leave a comment. I'm curious. Do you think someone like me is evil? Or just tired of being last? Because no matter what Evelyn does next, no matter how much she's uncovered, she doesn't know what I've prepared. She thinks she's ready. But I still hold the narrative, and I intend to end this story before she even gets to tell hers. I had nearly given up hope of finding anything new. Every drawer had been checked twice. Every camera app on my old devices scrubbed. The recording from under the dining table had already been backed up in 3 places. And yet, I felt like Maren was always one move ahead, erasing traces before I even thought to look. I needed something she didn't know existed. Something she didn't stage. Something she didn't control. That's when fate delivered it in the form of a woman named Denise Conrad. I hadn't heard that name in 20 years. She was the receptionist at my husband's former accounting firm. When Thomas retired, he closed out most client files and helped move their records to secure storage. Denise had always been meticulous folders, straight nails, trimmed voice, like a librarian. We weren't friends. We were polite acquaintances. But she'd known our family finances better than anyone outside a courtroom. So when she appeared on my porch that Tuesday morning, clutching a reusable shopping bag and shifting nervously in her orthopedic sneakers, I knew something unusual was about to happen. Evelyn, she said, I wasn't sure if I should come, but I had to. Come in, I said quietly. She didn't take off her coat. She didn't sit. Instead, she opened the bag and pulled out a file folder. Worn, yellowed, labeled in my husband's handwriting, Dalton Legacy Protocols. I was clearing out old files. This one was marked for shredding, she said, looking uneasy. But when I saw the name on the trust paperwork, the new trust, something didn't sit right. My heart started pounding. She continued, I remembered your signature. From years of tax filings, from the grant applications, from the foundation paperwork. She paused. The new signature doesn't match. What new signature? The one on the updated trust? The version that removed you as trustee? I stared at her. You've seen it. She nodded. It was scanned into the system as backup. I shouldn't have accessed it, but I did. She reached back into the bag and pulled out a flash drive. It's all here, both versions, the real one and the forged one. My hand trembled as I accepted it. I spent that entire afternoon on my old laptop combing through the files. It was all there, high-resolution scans, metadata revision logs. And just like Denise said, the new signature was a copy-paste job. Someone had traced my real signature from a previous document, compressed it, and inserted it onto a trust update I had never seen. Not only had they faked my consent, they'd built an entire digital trail to make it look legitimate. Have you ever felt your entire body go cold while sitting in full sunlight? That's what it felt like watching my identity manipulated on screen, like I was a signature to be dragged and dropped. If this has ever happened to you, if someone ever altered your reality on paper behind closed doors, I need you to comment below. Say something. Because we need to know how to spot this. We need to tell others what to look for. The truth doesn't always come from the people in the fight. Sometimes it comes from someone quietly sitting at a front desk who remembers what a real signature looks like. I called Diane, the social worker. She picked up on the first ring. I have something I told her. 10 minutes later, we were sitting at the kitchen table. Denise had gone home, but she had printed affidavits ready to be notarized. Diane reviewed everything slowly, carefully, like someone trained not to show reaction. When she finished, she looked at me and said just 2 words. It's enough. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like months. That night, Marin was hosting a board meeting for the local arts council. I made her tea chamomile the way she liked it. She smiled at me. Thank you, Evelyn. You're always so thoughtful. I smiled back. Not a mask, not a submission, but the smile of a woman who finally held the key. The next day, I walked into the law offices of Russell and Kane, an elder advocacy firm downtown, and placed the flash drive on the desk. The receptionist asked me if I had an appointment. I said no. She looked at my face and called someone immediately. Within minutes, I was in a private room with 2 partners. They listened. They took notes. And when I handed them the documents from Denise, the scanned trust files, and the original legacy protocols from Thomas's archive, they stopped taking notes. They started printing forms. By nightfall, my name was reinstated on a motion filed in family court. A cease and desist order was drafted, preventing any further changes to the trust without joint review. A formal request was made for a forensic signature analysis. It wasn't everything, but it was the beginning of the end. Have you ever watched someone try to write you out of your own story, only to realize you still had the pen? That's what this felt like turning the page after someone else tried to end your chapter. If you've ever been there, ever found your Denise in an unexpected place, tell us in the comments. Your story might help someone find their own. And now, for the first time since Thomas passed, I didn't feel alone anymore. Because with this evidence, and with people watching, now it was my turn. It happened on a Sunday. Jacob and Marin were hosting a charity brunch at the Glenhurst Civic Centre, one of those polished, picture-perfect events full of mini quiches, silent auction baskets, and too many people who smiled with their teeth, but not their eyes. They'd been planning it for months. Marin had designed the invitations herself, Dalton Family Brunch honoring local arts and community elders. The irony nearly choked me. I wasn't listed on the program. I wasn't mentioned in the welcome speech, but I showed up anyway, wearing the blue silk blouse Thomas had given me on our 40th anniversary, the one Marin had accidentally donated last year. I'd found it in the attic, still folded, still mine. Denise came with me. So did Diane, the social worker. I walked in without a smile, and I carried a folder. The brunch was already in full swing. Violin music murmured compliments, the sound of silverware on porcelain. Marin stood near the centre in a cream pantsuit, talking to a local councilwoman, her laughter the kind you train for. Jacob saw me first. His face paled. "Mom, I didn't know you didn't invite me," I said quietly. "But this is a community event, and I'm still part of this community." Marin turned. Her eyes scanned the room quickly, calculating who might be watching. "Evelyn," she said with practiced warmth. I wish you'd told us you were coming. We would have saved you a seat. There are plenty of empty ones, I said. I'll take that one by the center aisle. Before she could object, I walked straight past them, straight to the front, and tapped a spoon to my glass. The room quieted slowly. Dozens of faces turned toward me, some puzzled, some curious, a few politely annoyed. I spoke calmly. My name is Evelyn Dalton. Many of you know me. Many of you don't not anymore. A few heads tilted. I'm the mother of Jacob, the mother-in-law of Maren. And until recently, I was the co-trustee of the Dalton family estate, the founder of Glenhurst's Elder Library program, and the person who baked every dessert for this event 5 years running. Nervous laughter. I continued. But today, I'm here for something else. I'm here to tell you that I have been erased not by illness, not by age, but by manipulation. Quiet, calculated, and almost successful. Maren moved toward me. Evelyn, perhaps this isn't... I'm speaking, I said. She stopped. I opened the folder, held up a printed copy of the trust amendment with my forged signature. This is the document that removed me from my family's financial decisions. I never signed it. Gasps. This, I held up a second paper, is the forensic analysis showing the signature was lifted digitally from a separate document and applied without consent. More whispers. And this, I said. Pressing play on a small speaker is my daughter-in-law Maren telling someone, and I quote, "No one challenges concern." Her voice filled the room. We've been concerned for months. If anyone asks, just say we've been quietly managing things out of love. The crowd went still, completely still. Jacob stepped forward. Mom, this is not the place. It is exactly the place I said. Do you all know I asked the room that I had my locks changed on me? That I was removed from medical care access? That I found out from a pharmacist I was no longer listed as my own health proxy? Several people looked visibly shaken. I turned to Maren. You told people I was in Connecticut. That I had joined a retreat. That I was losing my memory. But it's you who rewrote the truth, because you were afraid of my presence in the home I helped build. Maren's face was frozen. Her voice, when it finally emerged, was brittle. This is being taken completely out of context. We were acting out of care. Then why forge my name? The silence roared. If you were in that room, standing where my neighbors stood, hearing what they heard, would you have spoken up? Would you have believed me? Or would you have believed the woman with the perfect calendar and catered brunch? Tell me in the comments. I need to know in moments like this whose truth survives the loudest. Or the one with the proof. Because I had spent months being made to question my mind. And now, for once, it was their turn to question themselves. The board president of the Civic Council stepped forward, eyes wide. We're going to take a short break. The violinist stopped playing. People stood whispering, drifting away like leaves in wind. Maren didn't follow them. She stood still, staring at me, and I stared back. That night, I received 3 calls from friends I hadn't heard from in months. The next morning, 2 neighbors brought muffins. By evening, I had 10 new emails from women I barely knew, each with a story eerily like mine. But this wasn't over. Not yet, because the next day, Maren filed a response to the legal motion. She was going to fight back, with lawyers. And what she didn't know was that mine were already 3 steps ahead. The courthouse smelled like old wood coffee and quiet dread. I hadn't been inside one since Jacob's traffic ticket in college. Back then, I'd sat in the back row with a zipped-up smile, watching my son explain to the judge why he didn't see the stop sign. Today, I wasn't sitting in the back. Today, I was the petitioner. We filed the civil motion under the California Elder Financial Abuse Statute, citing Welfare and Institutions Code, paragraph. See. It was a long statute full of legal definitions and clauses. But to me, it boiled down to this. It is unlawful for any person, including a family member, to take appropriate, obtain, or retain real or personal property of an elder for a wrongful use or with intent to defraud. I was 71. I was an elder, and I had been defrauded. My lawyer, Tasha Meyer, was not what I expected. Short, soft-voiced, dressed in a navy blazer that didn't quite match her shoes. But when she spoke, people stilled. She had spent 10 years working on probate fraud cases in Northern California, most of them quiet, unspoken wars within affluent families. "We won't go to trial yet," she said in our prep meeting, "but we're filing for immediate injunctive relief and protective orders." She paused. "And Evelyn, I want you to let me do the talking." I nodded. But inside, I was more than ready to speak. Maren showed up that morning, flanked by 2 attorneys from her firm's private network. Jacob was behind her stone-faced hands in his pockets. She looked pristine, confident. Her voice carried easily across the hallway as she greeted acquaintances from the local zoning board, as if this was just another civic hearing, as if she wasn't on the verge of being exposed, not just as a manipulator, but as someone who had systematically dismantled a life that wasn't hers. We stepped into Department 7B, a small courtroom, family law. No jury, just one judge, wooden benches, low murmurs. The judge, Honora Rebecca Leclerc, was sharp-eyed and allergic to grandstanding. "Let's keep this focused," she said within the first 2 minutes. "We're here on an emergency motion regarding elder estate manipulation." "Ms. Meyer, begin." Tasha stood. "Your Honor, we're here today because my client, Mrs. Evelyn Dalton, was removed from her role as trustee of the Dalton Family Trust through a forged signature. She was denied access to financial records misrepresented in third-party conversations and quietly stripped of legal and medical decision-making rights, all while being told she was unstable." She clicked a remote. The projector on the wall displayed a split screen. "Left my actual signature from a notarized document dated 3 years ago." "Right, the doctored one on the updated trust." Tasha continued. "As you can see from the forensic overlay, this is not a fresh signature. It is an extracted image, digitally lifted, resized, and reinserted without Mrs. Dalton's knowledge." Maren's lawyer objected. "Conjecture. We contest the validity of the analysis." Tasha smiled. "Then allow me to call our forensic handwriting expert." A woman stepped forward, Dr. Karen Laskin, credentialed in document verification across 4 states. She took the stand and spoke calmly, clinically. "In my professional opinion, there is a 98.7% probability that the signature on the amended trust is not original. The pen pressure is uniform. The scaling is inconsistent with natural variation. And the pixel integrity suggests copy and paste replication." The courtroom was dead quiet. Jacob looked down. Maren blinked. Just once, but it was enough. Then came the recording. Tasha pressed play on the audio Maren had left on Gina's voicemail. "We've been documenting her decline. If anyone asks, say we've been managing things out of concern. No one challenges concern." Maren shot up. "That's taken out of context." The judge raised a hand. "Mrs. Dalton," she said, turning to me, "were you ever informed of these legal changes?" "No, Your Honor." "Did you authorize your daughter-in-law to act on your behalf?" "No, Your Honor." "Did you experience disruptions to your medical care, your mail, or your finances following your husband's death?" I looked straight at Maren. "Yes, I experienced all of it." "Shh." The judge turned to the defense. "Would you like to respond?" Maren's lead counsel stood. "We maintain that all actions were in the interest of Mrs. Dalton's safety and health. There was concern about cognitive slippage and my client." Judge Leclerc cut in. "Where's the medical evaluation to support that?" Silence. No diagnosis, no doctor's note, but plenty of coordination behind her back. Forged documents, digital manipulation, and what appears to be financial redirection. Her voice was cool. "I'm issuing an immediate injunction. Mrs. Dalton is reinstated as co-trustee effective today. All financial activity from the disputed trust is frozen until further forensic review. And given the evidence, this case may be referred to the California Department of Adult Protective Services for further investigation under FIROF 610. She paused. "And one more thing." She turned to Maren. If I find out you instructed anyone to impersonate or misrepresent this woman's mental state again, I will not hesitate to issue a protective order under the California Penal Code, GRA 368, for elder psychological abuse. Marin's jaw clenched, but she said nothing. I walked out of that courtroom not as a victor, not as a warrior, but as myself recognized, restored, and no longer invisible. Have you ever seen justice land, not like a thunderbolt, but like a signature finally written with your own hand? Because that's what this was. A restoration, not a revenge. Tell me honestly in the comments, was that enough? Or do you think Marin deserves something more? More consequence, more exposure? I'm listening, because this story, it's not over yet. As for me, I didn't want her punished. I didn't want her ruined. I just wanted one thing back, something she'd spent months trying to steal. Myself. I never wanted to become a symbol. I never wanted to be the story women whispered about behind PTA tables or the name people dropped when discussing that case in Glenhurst. All I ever wanted was to live in my home with dignity, to be heard, to be asked, to be counted. And now, after months of isolation, of erasure, of war in whispers, I finally stood in the stillness of my own presence again. And it felt quiet, not triumphant, not dramatic, just deeply peacefully mine. 2 weeks after the court hearing, I received a letter from the Glenhurst Library Board. They wanted me back, not just as a donor or a name on a plaque, but as Chair Emeritus of Community Outreach, overseeing a new program for adult literacy and elder storytelling circles. I said yes. The same day, the Civic Council sent flowers with an apology. They wanted to formally acknowledge my contributions to Glenhurst heritage preservation. I didn't reply immediately. I let the bouquet speak for itself. And then something happened that I never expected. Nora knocked on my door. She stood there in sneakers and a ponytail holding a card she'd made by hand. Glitter glue. A photo of us at the beach when she was 6. Mom said I shouldn't come, she said, eyes wide. But I wanted to. I bent down and pulled her into my arms. And I realized something I hadn't let myself believe before. Marin didn't win, because control is temporary. But truth, even when bruised, even when late, always finds its voice. I didn't press charges. I could have. My lawyers were ready. So was Diane. Even Denise, bless her, offered to testify in criminal court. But I said no. Not because I forgave easily, but because I didn't need vengeance. What I needed was space to grow again, without being afraid that every kindness I gave would be used as a weapon. I got that space back. And it changed everything. That summer, I threw myself a birthday party. First one I'd ever planned just for me. No grandkids' schedules to work around. No negotiations over side dishes. No silent tension at the guest list. Just me. I booked the town's greenhouse garden for the evening where the jasmine grows thick and the benches stay warm until dusk. I wore green, the same shade Thomas loved. I invited everyone, even Marin. She didn't come, but Nora did. So did Ruth, and Patty, and Joan, and even Carol, who'd once believed I was in Connecticut. We laughed. We cried. We ate lemon cake under lanterns strung from fig trees. And when I stood up to give a toast, I didn't talk about the lawsuit or the court, or even Marin's name. I simply said, sometimes you have to lose your place to remember it was always yours. Have you ever seen someone go from forgotten to unforgettable, from nearly invisible to the voice everyone leans in to hear? If so, tell me. In the comments. Let's remind each other that endings don't belong to the ones who hurt us. They belong to us, the ones who endure. Your story might give someone the courage to start again, just like I did. And if this story moved you, if you stayed with me all the way through, and you believe there are still stories out there, hard, beautiful, unseen ones that need to be told, then don't just scroll past. Subscribe, because I have more to say, and I know you're listening. Thank you. Evelyn Dalton.